I'm Randy Mills, and so excited to welcome everyone to our Sports History Foundation podcast. We're today coming to you from Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow Sports Card and Memorabilia. And as a Sports History Foundation, it's our goal through filmmaking, through short stories, and now, of course, with our podcast, to bring to life some of the greatest sports stories, high school teams, coaches, players, buzzer-beating shots. We want to make certain that these tremendous Kentucky high school sports stories live on now and forever, for generations to learn from, to enjoy long past our time. And I'm so excited today to have as my guest, Doug Flynn. And Doug may have to bear with me. We're going to get into this podcast, but my goodness, I've got to give him this introduction. What a guy. A Lexingtonian through and through. He's a proud Bryan Station High School graduate, in fact. Two-time Major League Baseball World Series champion as a member of the fabulous Big Red Machine. Doug's Major League career actually spanned 11 seasons. Beyond the Reds, he played for the New York Mets, Montreal Expos, the Detroit Tigers, and of course he was a Gold Glove Award winner, the best fielding second baseman in the National League. Doug also was a UK basketball player as well as a UK baseball player, a Cincinnati Reds baseball announcer, and of course a University of Kentucky baseball announcer. He holds membership in 4 Athletic Hall of Fames. A couple just to mention, the Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame, as well as the University of Kentucky Athletics Hall of Fame. He's really renowned for his tireless commitment to charitable organizations, such as FCA, the Charity Golf Classic, our armed services. He devotes so much time and gives of himself so freely. He actually hosted the award-winning Kentucky Life Show on KET, and he has his own podcast, the Doug Flynn Show, which is a Christian faith-based show. Yet, I believe, as well as I've come to know Doug and call him a wonderful friend, that his crowning achievement is the fact that he is a Christian in his faith-based walk, for sure. And he's remained very unchanged, probably a little upset with me for this introduction, to be honest, but very down to earth, and I think probably among, without question, our state's greatest Kentucky ambassador. No two ways about it. So yeah, you're right, Doug. I think I've run out of room on this sheet. How about it, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you, Randy.
Thanks for being with us.
You start hearing that, and you go, you know what that all means? I'm getting old. Start getting old, the hair start falling out. You start. Yeah. But I've been so blessed, man. Growing up here in this town, they'd say it takes a village. Shoot, it took a whole city, state, and country to help raise me. And I've been thinking a lot lately about going back when it all started.
Yes.
And why did it happen to me? It didn't happen to somebody else. And so that's just part of the testimony that I just love sharing with everybody.
It's really where I want to go, Doug, as we get started. You know, you don't just roll out of bed and win a World Series championship, accomplish all of these wonderful accolades. Can you kind of take us back to those growing up years, your mom and dad, their influence in your life, your family? How about those early days and some of those memories?
Well, I remember at an early age going and watching my dad play ball and thinking I was probably 5 or 6 and Dad was, the ripe old age of 30. And I couldn't understand why my dad was playing with all these young guys, not realizing that he was in his prime and really not knowing that he had come from a pretty good athletic background himself. Played with the Hustlers here in Lexington, played a year with the Brooklyn Dodgers in the minor leagues, played basketball at the University of Dayton. Mom had played softball her whole life. And I really didn't understand that at an early age until I started getting older and meeting a lot of their teammates. And so Mom's family, the Richies, were all really good athletes. The Flynns on Dad's side were good athletes. And so if you weren't around it, you at least had some knowledge of what it was like. And so I took a little bit of interest in it. But, every sport just kind of intrigued me. And just didn't exactly know which one I wanted to play because I was so small. But I just liked to compete and I liked to play. And one thing good about growing up in Dixie subdivision was that I was playing with older guys from the time I could ever remember. And we grew up on the south side of town. I was Lafayette bound. Everybody in my family gone to Lafayette. And then my dad moved away when I was in the 6th grade. We moved across down to the north side. And after getting over there, the guys in our neighborhood were all good athletes, and they were bigger, better, stronger. And, you know, I've always been a firm believer of playing up a little bit instead of playing with your own age. Well, I was small even for my age group, but boy, these guys taught me how to have fun doing the sports. And so it was fun. Parks and Rec were so big in those days, Randy.
Right. Yeah. Just a little more maybe about your father, Bobby, because such a well-known figure throughout our state of Kentucky, and certainly with so many sporting events and activities in Lexington that he supported. Yeah. And you even mentioned the Hustlers, Lexington Hustlers baseball team. I think there would be interest in hearing just a little bit more about that organization, if you would.
And, you know, I'm still finding out stuff about that now.
Yeah.
It was an all-black team that played. Dad knew everybody on the team. They all around town in Lexington in those days, everybody knew each other. But he was looking for a place to play, and he gets a call from Scoot Brown, who was playing with the Hustlers, said, "Bobby, we need a second baseman." And Dad said, "Sure." He said, "Well, you got to try out." So Dad went over and tried out, and he knew all the guys. And, you know, for years people were saying, "Boy, that was a bold move on your part." And Dad said, "Why? I just going to play baseball with my friends."
Right.
And that was 1947. Well, one of the biggest reasons, Dad breaking the color barrier here, and Jackie Robinson breaking it in Major League Baseball, thanks to Happy Chandler.
Both in 1947.
47,
right.
Yeah. And that was a little bit before me. But it's so cool hearing the stories about the ballpark being packed every day with people. And I said, "Did you get paid?" He said, "Well, it depends. If you played well, you probably got paid because they'd pass the hat around after you did something." And Mom said she loved taking me. Well, she didn't take me there until a little later, but she loved going to the park because everybody was just there enjoying the great game of baseball. And when you think about all the players that came through there that hadn't quite made it to the major leagues yet. I mean, I heard Dad talk about, you know, Satchel Paige, and of course Luke Johnson and Bill White were coming through, and I think may have played a little bit with the Hustlers while they were on their military duty. And that was one of the things Randy used to, my dad would tell me, "Yeah, I know Tim Bunny, and I know so-and-so," and I went, "Yeah, sure." And then when we go and see that he really did know.
Yes.
And so I just always had an interest, and it was thanks to Dad's, I think, activity. But, you know, he wasn't only just a good baseball player, basketball player. He was a good diver. I remember as an 11-year-old kid, I think, we went to Woodland Park. And I went up on the high dive. I jumped in the water, and Dad started going up the high dive. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm going to go up on the high dive, too. You better be careful." And he goes up, he does a little 1.5 somersault off the high dive. And I go, "You got to be kidding." There was nothing he couldn't do. Right. I saw him hurdle a fence chasing a rabbit one night in the backyard. He could bowl, carried a 200 average in bowling. He was, you know, a 2 or 3 handicap golfer. So, yeah, I had a lot to live up to.
Yeah. Well, and also you can't deny that you may have come by it naturally, it sounds to me like. So given that influence of both your mom and dad being very athletic, you could harken back a bit to maybe the Little League days. You know, 12-year-old, of course, you played basketball when it was a season baseball, but maybe even some of those influences, Little League, middle school, as you start getting up close to the high school years.
Oh, wonderful influences. I played on a Little League team called the Colts in the Western Little League over in Meadowthorpe. And we won at one time as a 9-year-old. I played as an 8-year-old and didn't play a whole lot because I had some really good players up to 12 years of age. As a 9-year-old, and I got into the lineup, and I remember we had a 56-game winning streak going over a few years because we were only playing about 18 games or so during the year. And I'm pitching, and the first pitch of the game, I hit the leadoff man in the head. And he goes down on the ground, and here comes the ambulance. They take him to the hospital. I'm thinking some parent jumps up and said, "Oh, my gosh, he's killed my kid." And so we end up getting behind 4-0. We come back and we get beat 4-3. First game we've lost out of 56 straight. To this very day, my friend Tommy Wade, who was on that team, will remind me that I'm the one that lost the first game. I don't care about your World Series. I don't care about the big leagues. You lost the first game. And but, you know, the coaches with Jack Durkin and Gardner Webb and Luther, there's just Gardner Smith, and it was just wonderful guys who were concerned about you not only as athletes, but as young men. So you were on time, you had respect, you dressed the way you were supposed to, you learned the fundamentals of the game, and you were always very polite. And I was blessed to have that. And then, of course, after that, I went to Pony League, played 2 years of Pony League, and that was wonderful too. I had Wayne Wiley as one of my coaches. What's really amazing? I sat down one night, and you can go back, and I can name every single coach I ever had. And I think Gallup did a poll years ago that said that the most influential people on a high school campus are the coaches. And it's a lot of pressure on those guys because they're setting an example for all the young people on how to act. And I named them and started naming, and I was so blessed all the way through, from the Little Leagues to the Pony Leagues to Connie Mack League to Thoroughbred League into the high school years. And my high school coaches were great. Football, I only played 1 year as a 9-year-old growing up because I wasn't any good and I didn't like getting hit. So after my sophomore year, right at the end of the school year, Roy Walton walks up to me and says, "Flynn, I want you to come out for football." And I said, "I can understand why. I'm 5'2" and 110. I can understand you need some help here, Coach." He said, "I'm serious." He said, "Why don't you come out?" I said, "I've never played." Coach Walton liked to have 100 guys on the team. And he would go around the school. If he thought you were an athlete, he'd ask you to play. So he said, "I'll tell you what, if you stick out through summer practice, I'll get you a leather jacket." And cheerleaders like guys that leather jackets.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in. I'm in. So I went and I played my junior and my senior year. Of course, played for Coach Dan Haley, who was great. Basketball, I had Coach Bob Barlow my senior year, who was great. Baseball, Mr. Williams was our coach. I had 3 coaches in 4 years at Bryan Station in baseball. But, all of them were just good people, and they loved the game, and they loved the kids, and they encouraged you to play other sports. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful that I got to play all 3. I wasn't very good. I tell people today I wasn't very good, but everyone helped me for the other one. Football got me a little tough, so when it came time to take charges in basketball, you didn't mind the contact. And then my legs were in good shape for baseball, and so getting knocked down on a double play wasn't really a big deal, if you do it right.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm just thankful because I love to play. And I remember I told my mom I was going to play football, and she went, "Oh, I don't think y'all do that." "Why not?" "Well, you're not real big." And I said, "I know, but, Mom's a letter jacket. I got no choice. I got to play."
Well, as you said, the positive influence of high school coaches just absolutely cannot be overstated. It's as our listeners tune into our show, we're going to have a lot of high school coaches on and sharing their stories of the impact they've had on young lives.
Well, Coach Haley's the first person that ever got me to go to a Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Wow.
And here's the way he addressed our team that day. He said, "Fellas, they're having a meeting tonight. It's called FCA. I can't tell you to go, and you don't have to go, but I'll be there."
That's right. That's it. That's it.
All I needed, man.
That's right.
If Coach is going to be there, I think we ought to be there. And remember the speakers coming in. They'd use some UK players would come in and talk, and different folks. And, I'd always grown up in a Christian home, so this was just solidified what my mom and dad had been telling me and showing me for all those years.
It's tremendous for me to hear that story about Dan Haley, because I'll share with you, Doug, that my mother and father, of course, Tom Mills, the former commissioner of the Kentucky High School Athletic Association, they are both Pineville High School graduates.
Oh, yeah.
Dan Haley
That's right.
is in the Pineville High School Hall of Fame as a Pineville High School
That's right.
graduate, and what a gentleman and tremendous coach.
He scared me, big old burly guy, played football in UK some.
Moved on to Bowling Green, as you know, and had tremendous football teams there.
Somewhere else, too.
Yeah, I think.
Paducah Tillman.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that is exactly
Paducah Tillman, too.
Tremendous teams.
I remember going down to Paducah Tillman and seeing one time, and my last football game, we got beat before Thomas Highlands. And it was like
powerhouse.
Men against boys. These guys were good. And so the second half, I got hit early in the second half, and I don't remember any of it. So I said, "Coach, you got that video of the second half of Highlands? I'd like to see it." He went, "No, you don't." I said, "Okay,
let's leave it on the shelf."
Yeah. I said, "Well, I don't remember it." And he says, "That's best that way."
Well, you played football in high school. We know about the baseball playing, which we're obviously going to talk a whole lot about, especially as we move into part 2 of our podcast. But tell us a little about your basketball playing days at Bryan Station. I know y'all had a pretty darn good team, at least in your senior year for sure.
Well, we had a couple of different coaches that came in. Coach Shipley was there for a couple of years, and As a sophomore, I played JV, and as a junior, I really didn't get to play a lot. We had Mike Belcher at guard. We had a couple of seniors that were a lot better players than me. So I didn't play a whole lot. And then Coach Barlow came our senior year. We returned a bunch of little guys. We had Mike Belcher was the other guard with me. Frank Lemaster was a forward. He wasn't big, 6'1".
Let us know what Frank Lemaster went on to do, if you will.
Went on to play 10 years in the National Football League. Played football in Kentucky. And then linebacker with Philadelphia Eagles.
Brother of Jim Lemaster.
Brother of Jim, who played basketball in Kentucky. Great high school player, Bourbon County.
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
So, and then Eddie Clark and Don Davis, that was our team. And we weren't big. Don Davis was 6'2", maybe, but could jump real well. But Coach Barlow implemented a matchup zone. And we learned at our size to play it pretty good. We could cause a lot of havoc. And so we went from winning 4 games, I think, our sophomore year, 6 our junior year, or 23-6.
Wow.
Our senior year, we ran into Richmond Madison, who we had played earlier in the year at the Bluegrass tournament. They didn't have Randy Watts with it. It was about a 6'2" or 6'3" guard. And Randy was a good player. And of course, they had on that team also was the next year's Mr. Basketball and Robert Brooks.
Right.
And those guys were all juniors, Spencer Morgan, but they were a good ball club. Well, we beat them in the first tournament by 7. So we're playing them in the region at Memorial Coliseum, and we got a pretty good game going. We make a little comeback. We cut it to 1 as time was running out. You know, my only wish is that we'd had a 3-point goal back then, because we had some guys that could shoot it a little bit, but we were no match. Of course, that year, Madison went on and played one of the best high school teams ever in the state of Kentucky at Louisville Central.
Right.
Ron King and
Otto Petty.
Otto Petty, man, they were really good. So they only lost by 8 to them.
Wow.
Everybody said, "Well, what would you all have done?" Well, we'll never know.
That's right. That's right. And that's tough, because we all remember that last loss maybe of our high school basketball career. I think especially in Kentucky, because I know you and I both grew up with a dream of making it to the Sweet 16. That's what we wanted.
And I'd been going my whole life because Dad was a referee. Yeah. And you were going too.
Sure.
And so you'd walk, I remember going to Freedom Hall and wandering around and just saying, wow, watching Butch Beard and Wes Unseld and Mike Redd and all those guys playing. But then Mike Casey coming, and then didn't realize later that as a freshman at the University of Kentucky, Mike Casey would be there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I just grew up around it, and all my friends loved it, and of course all of Dad's friends were around it, and him being a referee.
Sure.
My dad used to say too. He said, it's amazing I got any friends at all. He said, I've been a politician, an insurance salesman, and a referee. It's amazing anybody likes me.
That's the truth. Well, you bring up some great names. I'll just mention Mike Casey, of course, 1966, Mr. Kentucky basketball, Shelby County Rockets state championship team, and, of course, a tremendous player at the University of Kentucky. So, Doug, you mentioned about then enrolling at the University of Kentucky. Most folks listening are going to say, well, of course, he played baseball at UK. Tell us some about that, but certainly, what else did you play at UK?
Well, I get out of high school. I tell folks, I was such a good athlete, I didn't have any scholarship offers. So I'm deciding, what am I going to do? My draft number was 232 back in 1969. So, it was pretty high chances of me getting drafted were, but I really wanted to go play ball somewhere, but there just wasn't anybody calling. I get a call one day, I'm sitting at home, and they said, "Hello, Doug, this is Joe B. Hall." And I'm thinking, sure it is. Because all my friends used to imitate Coach Hall and Coach Rupp. So I'm thinking, that's one of my buddies. And I said, "Sure, Coach, what can I do for you?" "Well, Coach Parsons and I would like to come over and like for you to come play basketball and baseball at the University of Kentucky." And I went, "Well, sure." I said, "I just got off the phone with Coach Wooden," and I said, "I've been kind of expecting this call." And I hang up the phone.
Oh, my gosh.
So a few minutes later, the phone rings back, and Dad answers, Mom and Dad's house, and he says, "Hey, Joe, Doug did what?" So I don't know why he hung up on you. And he says, "Sure, we'll be home. Come on over." And then I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, what have I done? So Coach Hall and Coach Parsons come over. What had happened, they had signed 5 scholarship guys to go to UK. The guard they signed was a kid named Rick Derrickson, who's always been a good friend. Rick was an outstanding pitcher. So he gets drafted by the Cleveland Indians. Mm-hmm. So now they got 4 guys. They got 6'4", 6'7", 6'8", 6'11", and nobody to bring the ball at the floor because everybody's already committed now to go to school. So,
And we might add, Doug, of course, this is the day when, as going to college as a freshman, there were freshman basketball teams.
yes,
Freshmen could not play on the varsity.
play varsity,
It was only
yeah.
sophomores through seniors.
Right.
And they had a big-time need at your position on the freshman basketball.
well, all the good players had already committed to go someplace. And people say, how long ago was that? Well, there was no dunking. Didn't really affect my game much. And there was no three-point goal.
Right.
Which that would have been kind of nice, I think, because my year. So anyway, I get to go. So I remember going to the very first team meeting that we had, and I'm sitting there, and we're waiting for Coach Rupp to come in, and Larry Stamper walks over to me, and he says, hey, go get me some water. And I said, go get your own water. He said, oh, really, man? Go get me some water. And I said, well, why do I want to go get you any water? He said, well, aren't you one of the student managers? And I said, no, I'm here to play. And he went, no, really, go get me some water. And he thought I was one of the managers there, but I'm 5'8". They got me listed at 5'10", but I was about 5'8". And so that was my first day there. Then we go out and we scrimmage one day. Now, one of the coolest things probably in my whole life is for a full year, I got to scrimmage against the number one team in the nation.
Yeah.
And they beat the living tar out of us. I told somebody, I said, Terry Mills was the meanest man I've ever met in my life. Well, actually, in reality, Terry Mills is maybe one of the nicest people. But on that basketball court, he was tough. And so we're scrimmaging them every day. So they're playing a zone one day, and somehow I hit 2 or 3 shots. Coach Rupp calls timeout. Oh, shoot. He comes walking over toward me. I'm a little bit nervous. And he comes and he says, are you that kid from Lafayette? I was saying, no, I'm not. I went to Bryan Station. Joe, he looked at Joe, he says, I don't believe I know this young man. And I said, he said, that's the Flynn kid. And so my dad's brother's name's Chigger. So he said, are you Chigger's boy? And I said, no, sir, I'm Bobby's boy. And he went, well, I'll be. And that was me and Coach. That's the only 2 times when I was there all year that I talked to Coach Rupp. The other time I got kicked out of a ball game and he came in and just read me the riot act. But that was Coach. He was, can you imagine being around Coach Adolph Rupp with the history that he has and the history of that university? And I grew up keeping a little scorecard, with Terry Mobley was playing and Larry Percival and then Cotton Nash and then my favorite team, Rupp's Ruds, and then all of a sudden now you're walking out on the floor every day and there's Dan Issel and Mike Pratt and Mike Casey and you go, wow, absolutely, wow. And then, of course, Jim Andrews on our team, who I'm still a dear friend.
You came in with Jim on the freshman team.
Jim Andrews, Steve Penorwood,
Yes.
Dan Perry, and Larry Stamper. And then that was also the year that Darrell Bishop walked on over to our team and played, and everyone thinks that, Tom Payne was the first black athlete to actually play for Kentucky. Well, he's the first scholarship, but he didn't play because he was ineligible. So Darrell Bishop came over and played guard. And boy, you talk about a tremendous athlete.
Now, let me get this straight, Doug. Darrell Bishop came to the University of Kentucky on a football scholarship as a tremendous football player, African-American.
Yep.
And then he came to play basketball.
Yeah, he was a good high school player at Cincinnati.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did that work out? How, maybe your all's living arrangements at that time at UK, or how did that all play?
Coach all came to me and says, Doug, Darrell's going to be on the team now. Would you mind rooming with him? And I went, why would I mind?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, because, when I grew up, my dad owned a restaurant, and most of the people who worked for my dad were African-American. When I played football, Harry Sykes was the other quarterback, who we were in competition with each other. We ate together at my house before every high school football game. Nobody saw color back then. These were teammates. These were friends. And so when he asked me, he said, would you room with Darrell? And I went, well, sure. And I was worried about Darrell. I wasn't worried about me. I said, how's he going to feel? Because this is going to be tough. Because, before they tried to get Wes Unseld to come to UK, they tried to get Butch Beard to come to UK. They didn't want to be the first people to ever do that. And we had a little incident down at LSU. When we played them up here one year, I was having a really bad game, and this guy was guarding. He's about 6'2", and he was just all over me. He was funny, though. He'd say stuff, and he would get on me if I'd miss a shot or something. Finally, one day, right towards the end of the game, he walked up to me, and he says, I shouldn't be getting on you. It's good to see they let jockeys play basketball up here.
Oh, no. No.
It wasn't funny then, but it's pretty funny now. So we go down to LSU to play, and they play a 2-3 zone, and because they've seen me shoot, I didn't hit nothing up here. They kind of spread it out. We start off, and I hit like my first 3 or 4 shots. I got like 11 points in my first 19, and we're up 19-2. And then there's some jawing going on, and we come down the floor, and I look up, and all of a sudden he just goes, bam! He drills me right here. And I just happened to have a hold of his shirt at the time, and I came back and did the wrong thing, and I hit him back, and so I get kicked out of the game. So I'm in the locker room, and Coach Rupp comes in. We end up winning the game 1 point, and I learned several lessons. 1 point in overtime. Coach Rupp comes in, he tells us, everybody goes out, he says, you stay here.
This must have been the second time.
It's the second
conversation with Coach Rupp.
He says, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. He said, you're an embarrassment to this team, to this program, to this state, to your mom and dad, to the game of basketball, to Abner Doubleday, to whoever it is. I was an embarrassment to the world.
There we go.
And I'm thinking, all right, they're going to get rid of me. I'm gone. He says, now get back out and cheer for your team. So I had to go back out in front of 19,000 because Maravich was there that year, so you know the place is full. Every time we played, it was full. So we go back out, and I go sit on the bench. The game's over. I'm sitting in my room. I got an ice bag on my jaw, and Daryl and I are sitting there just kind of talking. Meanwhile, after that fight, when they pulled me away, it was right in front of our bench. All I remember is Daryl sitting on this guy and just wearing him out.
Wow.
And
he was taking care of his room.
And I said, Daryl, you don't have to do that. He said, wow. Really?
Wow.
So there's a knock on the door. I open it up. It's Dan Issel and his wife, Sherry.
Wow.
And he comes in, and he said, how you doing? I said, I'm good, a little embarrassed, but I'm good. And I said, I guess Coach Rupp's probably going to send me home. He went, Coach Rupp loved it. I said, what do you mean? He said, before our game tonight, he says, some of you boys are not playing near hard enough, and I got a little freshman that'll get in there and play hard. And he used that to talk to the guys.
To motivate them.
And then Issel said, now let me tell you a little something. He said, do you watch how many times people take cheap shots at me?
Wow, yeah.
He said, because they know if they get me out of the game, they got a chance to beat Kentucky.
That's right.
He said, you're the only guy that can bring the ball up the floor, and you guys are up 19-4, and now selfishly you get yourself in trouble because you were thinking of yourself and not about the team.
Good point.
And I can remember in the big leagues, out at second base, and a guy steal, and me smack that tag on him, and I got him in a close ball game late in the game, and the umpire called him safe, and I want to get run so bad, and I'm thinking, you better stay in because you might be able to make the next play.
It's bigger than me, right?
It's bigger than me. That's right.
Yeah.
We just did something recently. We did a little Barnhart, Jack Gibbons, and Max Apple, and I did a little thing recently. It's called Playing for a Greater Person.
Uh-huh.
And so Dan taught me a good lesson, and I never forgot it my whole career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you had the baseball season there, and then did some change come into your life around that time? How'd that work out, Doug?
Funny you should ask that, Randy. Well, I wasn't playing any on the baseball team. I got to see Coach Parsons the other night. Coach is 80-something years old. What an athlete. Played basketball, all-conference baseball. Good man. And people say, why didn't you play up here? 3 years later, after you left the University of Kentucky, you were in the major leagues. But how come you weren't playing? And I said, I wasn't that good. I still, all through my freshman year, still 5'8" and 147 pounds. It wasn't until after I got out of school during that summer that I started growing a little bit, maturing a little. And so on the team, I think I had 9 at-bats my freshman year, and was asked to move on. So I went to a junior college down in Somerset, Kentucky. And man, it's amazing how God has shaped my life. And I was so blinded by it at first, but it's really cool because I'm not near good enough to put this like it happened. And I get down to a junior college where I'm playing baseball on Sundays in the Bluegrass League, playing doubleheaders. And I'm playing 3 nights of softball a week as guys are driving down to Somerset because I didn't have a car, picking me up, bringing me back to Lexington, playing a softball game or two, and then taking me back down there. Tommy Crooks. And when I think back now, that was just amazing that they would do that. So one night, I finally buy a car. I got me a 1961 Corvair. It's got the engine in the back, right? And 3-speed on the floor. Bought it from my Uncle Chigger for $200. Had my muffler tape. all wired up with a coat hanger, but it was mine.
Yes, sir.
And so I take the boys over to Richmond one night. I'm the designated driver, and we go over and we see the Group Exile play.
Oh, yeah.
And we come back home, and it's late, probably 1:30. Next morning, knock on my door, 8 o'clock. What are you guys doing? We're going to go try out for the Cincinnati Reds. All right, why not?
What?
Because I don't have a glove or shoes. And Tim Williams, who was a good friend of mine, he was with Somerset Foods for a year, just a great guy. He said, use my shoes and gloves. And these guys saw more in my ability because I just started to, my arms started getting a little stronger, started getting a little quicker, game started slowing down a little bit. And they sent me out there to try out. And so I go to the tryout camp on a softball field. And Chet Montgomery was the guy with the Reds. And he said, I want to see you one more time. I was in a pair of shorts and a tank top or something. And he said, you got a baseball uniform? And I went, yes, sir. He said, I want to see you in Frankfort, Kentucky, Friday and Saturday in 2 weeks. And I said, well, I can't be there Friday. I got finals, but I can come Saturday. And when you go to a tryout camp, you get 5 swings, you run the 60-yard dash, and you take a round of infield. And they're looking for that raw ability of something you can do. So I do that. Somerset, go to Frankfurt. They don't say anything. Call me and say, we want you to come to Riverfront Stadium. Nothing else. Now, in the meantime, I talked to Coach Doug Hines, who was at Somerset for years, was now coaching Bethel College in Tennessee. I'd gone down to visit, scrimmage basketball with him. He was giving me a scholarship to go play 3 years of basketball at Bethel College.
Oh, yeah.
So now I finished Riverfront, come home, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to Bethel. Maybe I'll try out for baseball. I don't know. We'll play a little basketball. And I get a phone call that says, Doug, it's Chet Montgomery. We want to come to Lexington and try one more time. We want to look at you. Now, I'm thinking, Randy, this is true. They're filming me, and they're showing it to their friends and laughing, thinking, this clown thinks he's going to play pro baseball. Or there's something there that's intriguing. What I later found out is they saw something in my hands and defense that they said just looked natural at a big league level with a little fine-tuning. So I go up to Southland Park, try out one more time, and Chet Montgomery says, what would it take for you to be a pro ball player? And I went, no. Coke and a hot dog, man. Let's go.
Wow.
And I got the Coke. And then I got a chance to go to my first year of pro ball, and it took off from there.
That's amazing. And you've gotten us to that point, and I've promised our audience that we're going to have a part 2 of your Major League Baseball days. But I'd like you then, now you're a minor leaguer, maybe just take us from those minor league days, what turned into be a rapid ascension into the major leagues, the couple of years it took there and how that played out, and maybe just you're finding out that, hey, I'm going to be a Cincinnati Red. I've made the daggone roster.
You know, when I first got to the camp, my first camp, I was 20, about to be 21. And I looked around, and there's 15, 16-year-old Latin players, 8 kids right out of high school. I'd already been 2.5 years of college. And I'm thinking, wow. And I signed for $2,500. Well, when you look around, you got guys that are making a whole lot of money to sign. You figure they're going to get a better look than you. That's just kind of the way it is. So I played 2 weeks there at shortstop. Now, I've been a second baseman most of my life. So I'm playing 2 weeks there at shortstop. And Dave Pavlicek was my manager. He came up and said, can you play third base? And I went, yeah, why? He said, well, the third baseman Class A ball, which is a step up from rookie ball, got hurt, and they need a third baseman. I went, oh, yeah, I played there in high school. So I come up to the team, get my uniform on. Russ Nixon's my manager. Hey, Bluegrass, you're playing third. So I get in the lineup. Now I hear him holler, hey, Bluegrass, back up. No, get in. No, come over here. No, go back. The inning's over with, and he's waiting for me at the top of the step. He says, you never played a game of third in your life, have you? And I went, nope. Well, he said, why would you tell me you played third base? I said, because it was a chance to go from rookie league to A ball. And I said, if you'd have said, can you catch? I'd have said, yeah, I caught in high school. Yeah. So Russ liked me, and the rest of that year I played short, third, and second, but I had 3 number 1 guys playing in front of me. They all got over $100,000 to sign. So, but when it came time for our playoffs, he stuck me at shortstop. So the year's over with. I'm thinking, I'm not playing. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'd rather go play basketball somewhere. So I go to Russ, and Russ says, stick 1 more year. I want you to stay 1 more year. I said, really? He said, yep. And years later, I would ask him, and I said, why would you do that? I mean, were you just being nice? He said, no, Doug, you did things defensively that we can't teach some of these guys.
It's hard.
And so I stayed. The next year, about 2 weeks before we broke camp, they moved me from A ball to double A ball. I get to double A ball, win an MVP and an All-Star award. I'm thinking, maybe. But still, you're thinking, I got Joe Morgan and Concepcion in front of me. There ain't a lot of places to go. So then the next year I go to AAA and have a pretty good year there, get MVP on that team, and thinking, I'm close, but there's nowhere to go. So I get invited to spring training in 1975. In the minor leagues, wonderful. Some of the greatest friends I got in this world today are from those days because you depended on each other. I mean, I'm making $500 a month in A ball, $700 in double A, and $1,000 a month in triple A. So when I come home in the off season, you got to get a job. Right. So I go in 1974, after my triple A year, I go to Venezuela to play down there with Concepcion's team. I played the first 7 games. We won 6 out of 7. Looks like we got a team maybe to go to the Caribbean World Series. And because we were looking pretty good, they paid Davey a whole bunch of money to come back and play. He wasn't supposed to play. And so I go to the bench. Well, I had a manager there named Ozzie Virgil. And Ozzie would take me out every day and hit me ground balls and throw BP and stuff. And, I mean, to this day, Ozzie really got me ready for the spring training of 1975 when I go and set a record for base hits. And then
in spring training,
yeah. And as a matter of fact, who told me I made the team? It wasn't Sparky, it was Steve Hamilton. Steve was coaching with the Tigers down there in spring training, and he comes running up to me with about 4 days to go, and he says, Ducky, way to go, man. You made the team. And I went, how do you know? He said, Sparky told me. I said, well, Sparky didn't tell me. He said, oh, he's not going to tell you. Just don't leave until they make you go. And so they never told me to leave, so I just followed them up to Cincinnati. And then it was, but the minor leagues were so good. The travel you did was lousy. The roommates and the buses and all that stuff, no air conditioning, but it's just, it really gets you ready for what you're about to receive once you get to the major leagues.
Such an amazing story. I mean, the only thing I can say about Kentuckians are proud about Kentuckians.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, you're right.
We're so many people.
Well, look who we had to follow back then, though, Randy. You look around, there weren't a lot of guys going.
Right.
You had Lou Johnson from the area, you had Pee Wee from, and then Mr. Combs.
Yeah,
they had
way back
Earl
then. Combs, yeah.
And you start looking at other guys who had signed professionally, but none of them had really got to that top level. So you're thinking,
right.
And then when you don't make an all-city team or anything in the sport that like that, you're thinking, and for good reason. There were some really good athletes around here that played the game, but just didn't take it on to the next level. They either started realizing that they wanted to go get a degree in something, so they would give up the sport. And the way I went about it, I just like to continue playing. It was just fun to play, and still fun. I just can't anymore.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a lot of life left to go.
Amen, buddy.
A lot of life left to go. That's why you were so kind to grant me a part 2. But I want to wrap up and warm up our audience a little bit for what does lie ahead. I want to play just a little bit of rapid fire with you.
Let's go, baby.
Right. Tony Perez.
The classiest, best RBI man who ever played the game.
Johnny Bench.
Greatest catcher that ever played the game.
Plain and simple.
No, there's no debate. There's no debate. No.
Joe Morgan.
Smartest baseball player I ever played with. Most prepared ball player probably I ever played with.
What's the secret to stealing a base?
He had a little book. He would keep a little chart right there on the times that the pitcher took to throw to first, what their moves were, how often did they throw, tendencies. And he was so smart. And Joe, Ricky Henderson stole, 800 bases. Joe Morgan could have stolen that many, but when he was stealing a base, everybody in the ballpark knew he was going to steal a base because he only did it when we had to have a run. But he was his quickness. He was full speed right out of the gate. 5'8", 160 pounds maybe, and and for 2 years, most valuable player, best player in the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Kentuckians proud of Kentuckians. There's a left-handed pitcher. I believe his name's Don Gullett, and I think he went to McHale High School in Greenup County. And when you talk about multi-sport stars,
one of the best athletes
you can look it up.
I played. He averaged 20-something in basketball.
There you go.
And scored 72 in a football game.
In one high school football game. That's exactly right. He sure did.
Quiet,
Don Gullett, tell us about it.
Love Don Gullett. Just saw his wife Kathy recently up at our reunion. Don Gullett was not only he was a great athlete. He pitched, he could bunt, he could run bases. He played hard, he threw hard,
and he hit the ball.
and he could hit. Oh yeah, but he was quiet, and I mean, one of the most humble superstars that I've ever been around.
Yeah, that's true.
Loved Don Gullett. I mean, just we got to know each other even better because doing the fantasy baseball camps for the Reds, and he'd come out. And I remember sitting around one night, and somebody was saying, "Did you throw as hard as all these guys on it?" And he went, "Yeah." He says, "Go look it up on there. July the something, 1980 or 1970 something. Don Gullett versus Nolan Ryan. See what happened." And you go look it up.
Wow.
He struck out like 14 and beat Ryan, 4-1 or something.
Wow.
And I never heard him say that before, but today, because of it's been such a stat-worthy profession, all of them are now, and I'm not a fan. I'm an old school guy. I think there's only two stats that win in baseball: you win or you lose. How you get there is
you go.
And so when you're saying, "Wow, he threw it across the diamond 99 miles an hour," was he out safe?
That's right.
Yeah. Or he hit the ball, 122 off the bat. Well, I guess that's good, and it's good for something, but when you're a 500 ball club and all you're doing is talking stats, to me, it's still important to hit cutoff men, move runners when you got a chance to do it, lay a ball down, hit the opposite way, throw to the right base, don't make stupid outs on the bases. And people ask me about the Reds today. Reds got some talent. They just don't play good baseball. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, and I think under Terry Francona they will. They'll do that. But, it's a whole different Waco right now, buddy.
Well, Cincinnati Red, great, and manager as well. And good friend of yours, without question. I got to wrap you up with this one.
Uh-oh.
I believe it was was it Peter Edward? Am I right? Middle name? Peter Edward Rose?
Yeah.
Pete Rose.
I love Pete Rose. Pete introduced me to my wife's. I'm still married 43 years later. Pete did things. You only heard about all the bad stuff Pete did. Did he have a gambling problem? Yeah. I can honestly tell you, I met him in 74 out in the cage. He was hitting one day. I went by the cage and I'm watching. He said, "Looks easy, doesn't it?" And I went, he's hitting off Scott Breeden. No gloves. And I looked at his hands, and he had blisters, and his hands were bleeding. He'd sit there, bam, line drive. Wow. He said, "Get in here." I went, "Oh, crap. Can you say crap on this?" I put on my spikes. I get in the cage. First pitch, Scotty Breeden throws me a curveball, and I take it. Then Pete says, "What are you waiting on?" I said, "I thought it was just batting practice." He said, "Kid, they don't tell you what's coming in the big leagues." And I didn't know that he was in there, and Scotty was mixing up pitches.
Yeah.
It was just, he could hit.
Crushing.
Excuse me. Pete, though, in all the years I've known him, I never, one time, ever heard him bet on baseball. Ever. Everything else, I'm sitting at the races with him a bunch. I've been watching him bet on football games. We used to spend every New Year at Pete. We go out to dinner that night, get up the next day and watch football games.
Right.
Just talk, And, but he did something for me in my family's lifetime that a lot of people wouldn't have done. So 1977, my sister disappears. I call the Reds, and if you only have 2 years in the big leagues, you have to stay at the hotel where all the team, media, and everybody stays. So I called Dick Wagner with the Reds, and I said, "I'd like to stay outside of the hotel. I'm getting a lot of phone calls. This is fresh. I want to bring my parents down. We're going to get away from Lexington, da-da-da-da-da." Dick Wagner says, "Well, we can't do that. You only got 2 years in the big leagues."
Fine.
I said, "I know, Mr. Wagner, but I'd really like for you to do that for us." And he says, "Well, if I do it for you, I got to do it for everybody." And I said, "So you're telling me I can't do it?" He said, "Well, you can't do it." I said, "I got something for you. I quit."
Yeah. Wow.
I was phone.
Wow.
So about an hour goes by, and the phone rings, and it's Pete. And he's laughing like hysterically. He said, "Did you quit?" I went, "Yeah." I said, "Pete, I got 2 years in the big leagues. We've won both years. The only way I got to go is down from here." And he says, "You're not quitting." He said, "I got 2 rooms, one for you, one for your parents at the King Arthur's Inn down from the ballpark." And that spring of 77, we go down. I ended up getting traded, though. Mr. Wagner got rid of him that year. But that spring, we go, and there's Pete, his family, his wife's mother would cook meals every night, have me and my mom and everybody over to eat. And they treated us so good. We were away from everything. And Pete was just, people don't know the kind of stories.
Sure.
And he was the kind, Randy, if you went to visit him, I told him I started collecting cards. He comes down, he throws his rookie card on the table and start your collection with that.
Wow.
Or he'd bring you down those big Porsche sunglasses he had. I still got the price tag on. I still got them. And he'd bring them down. He said, here, and, you need a suit. You need some shoes.
My goodness.
He did a lot. I wish that when all this had come down, he'd have said, yeah, I made a mistake. I gamble on baseball. But you turn on a ball game right now, and between innings, they're telling you which hitter's got odds on hitting a home run the rest of the game, what pitcher can do this, what team might win.
Exactly.
It's all one big gambling thing now, which is so hypocritical,
absolutely.
in my opinion. So when people say, does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Dead dumb right, he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Go. Thank you, Doug. I'll tell you what, I believe.
I'm not leaving.
That
We got to talk more. I'm not going anywhere.
I got a feeling we got some big league stories coming here now, brother. Ain't no two ways about that. Absolutely. Oh, what a grand time together.
It's fun, buddy. Thank you all so much.
Love our setting. We want to thank Jimmy's Kentucky Roadshow Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Jimmy Mahan, fabulous guy. He just says carte blanche. Come in, take it away. Trey Huntsman, David Diamondstein also work with him here at the Roadshow. And we just thank everybody who's making this happen because, as I stated at the beginning of the show, with the Sports History Foundation, we're going to bring so many Kentucky high school sports legend stories together. And this is kicking us off, and we're so excited to have Doug today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Randy.
All righty.
Hey, how long did we go? An hour?
Before we sign off, I want to take a moment to thank one of our partners and proud sponsors who make Sports History Now possible. Today, a special thank you goes out to our proud partner, Alpha Event Medicine. Alpha Event Medicine is locally owned in Lexington, Kentucky, and is a trusted medical provider for special events. You can count on Alpha Event Medicine being there when it matters most.